Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. We will do a quick roll call. Will Shorter, Chair of the Board of Trustees. Is Joyce on the line, I see?
Joyce Miller.
Joyce, second vice chair.
Yes.
I know Rob is unable to make it today. I see Barbara, our secretary, Deidre, our treasurer, and I see Jim, our newest director. I see Samoa on the line. I see Joan. I see Penny. And those are the members I see of the executive committee on the line. And we also have two, I mentioned Penny as well, and I see Sandra Solomon, and I also see Jenny Lane on the line as well. So thank you guys for attending. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd have them raise their hand so we can see.
Can you guys raise your hand if you guys approve?
Okay.
If you guys disapprove, raise your hand. Okay, the agenda is adopted. The format of the agenda today is broken down into 2 items. The first one is action items because we need to act on 2 items today because of the timing of between the summer and when the full board will meet in September, and discussion items as we plan for the upcoming year. So we will start off with our first action item, and that is the motion to amend the annual leave policy, and I will allow Skip and Coven to explain a little bit about that policy revision and give you guys a little bit more context. So I'll give it to you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I'm Skip Auld, Chief Executive Officer for Anne Arundel County Public Library. It's good to see everyone here in the midst of the pandemic that we're living through. At the June board meeting, I believe it was, or it may have even been April or March, the board approved a motion to carry over comp time at the end of this calendar year because we had about half of our workforce doing essential duties, and they were building up comp time because they were getting their regular pay, and then every hour they worked was building up comp time. So a number of people built up a lot of time until we ended that somewhere in April or May. So that is going to happen. At the end of this calendar year in December, comp time will carry over, and so people won't have to use that. This motion is asking you to approve the carryover of annual leave time at the end of this calendar year. And to give you the reason we need to do that, at the end of every year, we allow people to carry over only 280 hours of annual leave time. And so people are going to have more time than that because they won't have burned off all of their comp time, much less eaten into the annual leave time. So we want to be able to have all of next year to be able to have this carryover. So if somebody has 300 or 350 hours of annual leave, we don't want them to have to lose it. And so this would allow this time to be carried over. Coven, there's also a provision that we put into this motion, and I'd like to read the motion to you. This is a motion to approve all accrued annual leave balances to be carried over into calendar year 2021. Employees retiring or terminating in 2021 will be paid for unused annual leave up to 280 hours of accrued annual leave. So let's say you carry over 350 hours, you use a little bit of it, but you still have 325 hours and then you retire in the middle of next year, we only pay a maximum of 280 hours. So that's what this would do. Coven, is there anything else to explain on this?
No, you covered it very thoroughly. I have nothing to add.
So I think we can take, go ahead, John.
Is it true that comp time cannot be carried over?
Comp time can
No,
now be carried over.
Oh, comp time can
Yeah.
now be carried over.
The norm for us is to allow 80 hours to be carried over of comp time.
Right.
Usually we're not building up that much on the comp time. Well, actually some people are, but normally you can allow 80 hours to be carried over, but that limit is not in place. So you could carry over 180 hours of comp time this coming year. And the idea is we'll do this now and we'll get control of this over the course of next year instead of everything being compressed into a single year.
And also, just to add a little bit more context around this, the reason why we're bringing this to the executive committee now instead of September, we just want to give our employees enough notice that you can carry over your annual leave until the next year now instead of trying to figure out what you're going to do in September. So just trying to give everyone enough notice about our about this policy change.
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Is there a second?
You don't need a second.
Oh,
Okay.
Small committee, small board.
I like it. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those against, please raise your hand.
Sorry, I don't have my
motion carries.
video on, so I can't raise my hand.
Penny's trying to say something, it looks like, but can't hear her because she's muted.
Now I'm unmuted. I raised my hand because I wanted discussion before we voted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I hate to bring up the unthinkable, but what if this pandemic continues into next year?
Yeah, I can address that.
Yeah. Skip.
Penny, yes, thank you for that question. If right now we are not in the situation of building up the time the way that we were in the first 2 months of the pandemic. The reason we have the issue is that we were paying everybody a full salary, and anybody who worked any hours over and above was building comp time. And it built into several weeks of comp time for a number of employees. And so over the course of 2 years, we won't be doing that again because we're in a different situation. At least we don't expect to. So, but I think that we know not to do this exact same thing, and so we won't create more of a problem going forward. And it's a problem only because so much is built up.
Because I was going to say it is looking like the coming surge is going to bring back shutdowns again. And once everyone is shut down, you wind up in the same position.
We could be in the same position, but we will figure out a way to handle paying people or compensating people who have to work as essential employees. We'll figure out a different way to do that.
Right. Thank you.
And Jim, was that what you wanted? You wanted to make sure Penny could speak. Was that it?
Correct.
Or did you have something to
I was
add?
just trying to get your attention.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Call the vote. Oh, we voted.
Yes, we voted. So moving on to the next action item, the adoption of the equity statement. I will turn this over to Skip to give us further explanation and context.
Okay, so about a month or so ago, Kathy came to me because our staff are trying to pull together all of our statements to indicate that we are standing with our community on these issues of race and equity. And so we sent one of the documents called equity statements. It has links to a couple of statements. The reason I didn't want to just put this up onto the web page is there's two statements that I thought would be good for this board to adopt. The way that this board adopted the Urban Libraries Council statement on race and social equity. The two statements are from the Asian Pacific American Librarians Association, and it's labeled APALA condemns the rise in xenophobia and racism due to the novel coronavirus outbreak. And then the second statement is from the Black Caucus of the American Library Association, and it is labeled Statement Condemning Increased Violence and Racism Toward Black Americans and People of Color. So what I would like to do is to just seek a motion to adopt those two statements, and then we will link to them on the website in a page that I also sent separately yesterday. The page was called Draft Web Page, AACPL Stands With Our Community. And we kind of modeled this on the page that's up at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. There's several headings. The first one starts, AACPL Stands With Our Community, and there's a link to the statement that I put out on racism that's right on the front page of our website now. And then there's an equity statement which starts out, the Anne Arundel County Public Library is committed to advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then there's a paragraph about that. The next heading says Black Lives Matter, and it says that the AACPL Board's Diversity Committee and the AACPL staff's Workforce Quality and Diversity Committee stand up for racial justice, stand down systemic racism, and rejects the perpetuation of hate. And so that, I think the involvement of the board's diversity committee was especially why I wanted Sandra to be at the meeting today. The next subject heading says solidarity with libraries and communities. We stand with the American Library Association and the Urban Libraries Council in their condemnation of racism and support of social justice. And then finally, this is where it gets back to these statements that I'm asking you to adopt. So I'm not asking you to adopt this page. This is just how to give you context for how we're going to have the page up in order to be out there for the community. But the last one says, excuse me, the American Library Association unequivocally condemns racism and endorses recent statements by, and frankly, I think we would probably change this to say that the Anne Arundel County Public Library Board of Trustees unequivocally condemns racism and endorses recent statements by the Asian Pacific American Librarians Association and the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. So that gives you the context. Donna and I sent this out a couple of days ago, and I think that it's a good time to have discussion.
So moved.
Discussion, Ms.
Yes.
Jones?
Yes. I would certainly like to put something out there that I think is pretty important. Our library has had some pretty strict policies over the years. We've adopted everything that we needed to do. There's certainly no discrimination about anyone who comes into our library. Hasn't been in all of my tenure on the board, regardless of your skin color or your nationality or your sexual orientation or your religion. Anyone is included in the library where it is. And I don't see why we need to further adopt somebody else's policy in addition to all the things we've already adopted when there is no problem in the library. And I feel strongly about that. And I think to imply that there is a problem in the library, which is what this does, sends a very bad message for those of us who have toiled in the vineyard, so to speak, for many, many years to try to ameliorate any of the things that might rise to that level. So I oppose
Pe-
that.
Penny?
So Penny, you're going to need to
Yes.
unmute. Oh, okay. Excuse me 1 second. When you're not speaking, would you go ahead and mute and then?
Yeah.
Okay, Penny, I think you're ready.
I wonder if we could simply put a statement saying it has always been the policy of the Anne Arundel County Library to be non-discriminatory. Instead of using a statement put out by another group, just reinforce the feeling of the ones that we've always worked by.
Right.
Let
Exactly.
me say something if everybody else weighs in.
So wait a second, everybody.
Could I think that what I would like to say is that this is not the same type of statement as we have in our human resources department that we are, and Coven could better express how we state this, that we are not discriminating. I think that we faced a number of issues 10 years ago when I got here that had to do with the equal employment opportunity claims that we were discriminating. That's not what this statement is, and I don't know if others of you want to go into this, but this is really more of a statement that. I'm sorry, may I finish? This is more of a statement that we are recognizing that there are systemic racism concerns in our society that we are obviously living through and observing and reading about every day the past 2 months since May 25th, and that we want to stand with everyone who is trying to root out the systemic racism. So I don't know that you had a chance to actually read the statements. I can read them, or perhaps other people want to discuss. Penny's nodding that she would like me to read them. Let me.
No, I said I was nodding that I have read them.
Oh, you have read them. Has everybody had a chance to read these statements of APALA and BCALA?
Yeah.
So maybe some of the rest of you would like to weigh in on whether you would like to adopt the statements or stand with the associations.
Joyce?
Okay, well, I just want to say Anne Arundel Medical Center came out also with a statement, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they discriminated before. I think that they work very hard on solving problems of racial disparities, not so much as being prejudiced against any group, but just in general, there are disparities in, for example, OBGYN. Black women have more problems associated. So what they're doing, they're saying, they put out a statement too that says how they, just like we're trying to do here. I don't think it means or implies that they were discriminatory.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Well, I don't interpret it that way. I just think that they're reinforcing what other institutions are doing now.
But it implies.
I see what you're saying, Joan. I see what you're saying. I'm just saying.
And by the way, Skip, I want to remind you that none of those claims were validated. So
I understand, Jen.
Before we get into a problem that may have had legal implications, let's stay on the course of these policy statements that are in front of us, if we can. Joyce, if you can please finish your statement.
I understand what you're saying, Joan, but I don't think that's what the implication of putting a statement like this is out there. I think it's to reinforce, and I agree with Penny that we can say, you know, that we have always, this has always been our way of doing things, but I don't think it hurts to put out a statement. That's my opinion.
Well, I just muted everybody, so if they want to speak.
Recognizing, has anyone, I will get to you in a quick second, Penny. Does anyone else want to speak who hasn't spoken yet? I just want to get to everybody. Jim, I'll get to you next, Penny. Recognizing
Well,
you, Jim.
I wanted to speak as a movement. I wanted to speak.
Okay, Deidre,
Hello?
Jim, then Penny.
Yes, I didn't just make the motion as a pro forma. I very strongly believe that we need to make this statement. I apologize, I'm driving, so if my signal is in and out, I'm sorry about that. I very strongly believe we need to make this statement. All institutions in America are part of an historical situation that has consequences today for people that are playing themselves out in our society. And although we may feel that in our living memory, these haven't been a problem for our institution, I'm fairly certain they have been in the history of this organization and certainly in the history of this county. So we really need to make a statement to say we are standing on the side of right here and letting the people of our county know that they are really welcome here. It's analogous to when certain churches say that they are open and affirming to the LGBT community. They are making a firm statement of openness. They're not saying that they have done something specifically in the past against us. They're saying this is a place for you, and we know there have been problems, and we want you here. And that's the importance of these kinds of statements. And I think it's right for us to sign on to a statement that a national body has made, because they have had we can be consistent with other libraries across the country by doing this, rather than trying to craft something of ourselves that gets all wishy-washy. So I'm very strongly supporting this. Thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and ask Jim to unmute now.
Jim, can you please unmute yourself? And
He is.
thank you.
Of course. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have to say, in reading it, I interpreted it more the way Joyce did than the way Joan did. I don't see this as an indictment of the Anne Arundel County Public Library or its past. I think it's an opportunity for us to say who we are today and where we stand, and that we're in solidarity with those who have seen injustices in the past, and we believe that moving forward, that this is how we should behave as a people, as a nation. We should do our very best to ensure that systems and the things that have certainly derailed opportunity in the past need to be completely obliterated. So I didn't see it as an indictment on the past of the library. I saw it as a chance to move forward and make a statement that we're in solidarity with those who want to do the right thing. Thank you.
Penny, and then I will go to Jenny Lane, and then anyone else and then Barbara.
Ask her to unmute.
Please unmute yourself, Penny.
I did. You misunderstood my approach. I was not saying that we don't need a statement. I was saying we don't need a statement that applies to an entirely different group. I think we could write a very strong statement of our own and post it on our site, rather than using somebody else's words.
Thank you for that. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Now,
Jenny Lane?
It seems to me that we could easily say that Anne Arundel County Public Libraries and the Library Board of Trustees has always supported all of our citizens and tried to well, anyway, I think we can make a statement like that and say, and we support the other people who are standing up for the rights of all of our citizens. You can always make links to those other two statements and say, you know, if you're interested, here are some other statements of that. I don't know. It seems a hybrid of the two might be the most effective.
Barbara? Can you please unmute yourself? We can't hear you. We still can't hear you. Third time,
Okay,
maybe the charm, third time's the charm.
I think there's been events in the last several months that has raised our awareness of the depth of some of these issues. And I think it's important to adopt the equity statements for all the reasons that have been stated in the last by the other board members that are in favor of adopting the equity statements.
Thank you.
Well,
are there any other, Deidre?
yes, I'm sorry. Could I just say something quickly about the idea of a blended statement or something custom made that references our past? I think that my biggest concern with a statement that refers to how we've always done things is that this library has been around since, is it the 20s, I think, right? So I have no idea, but I have a strong suspicion that some of the board members and some of the staff of the library back in that time period would not have had the kind of open-mindedness that we are led to today. So I would be really reluctant to consider making any statement about what the library has always done. That's all I have with that. Thanks.
Are there any other comments that anyone would like to make? Any points from the staff? With that, I will ask that we vote at this time on the motion that was made by Deidre. All those in favor, please raise your hand. So I see.
Sandra's not a voting member.
Ms. Solomon, you are not a member of the executive committee, so here, unfortunately.
Ask them to raise their hand again.
Please raise your hand again. All those in favor?
Let me write down. So we've got Jim, Barbara, Deirdre.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, are we voting on the original statement?
Yes, as it stands. And all those against? Any abstentions?
Wait. Can you ask against again?
Against?
And Joan is not. Okay. Don't worry about Joan. Okay, so
Well,
any against?
Point of order, Will, you shouldn't ask for abstentions.
Okay. Against?
So it's 5. It's 5.
Okay. Thank you. The motion carries. I just want to thank everyone for having which everyone in the nation is having a very difficult conversation about race and how we really try to face these difficult conversations around our country. So thank you guys very much for being so engaging and very respectful in the process. So with that, we will move on to our information items. I wanted to use this time to also plan a little bit for this upcoming year, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we all have a clear understanding of where we kind of want to go throughout this year and what are some ideas we can incorporate to make this year run smoothly. And the first one is, I think it will be appropriate if we have a COVID-19 response and reopening update. As you probably learned by now, unfortunately, we did have an employee test positive at the Odenton Library branch. I just want to thank Skip and his entire senior leadership team and all the employees of our system for all their hard work and dedication during these trying times. And I will turn it over to Skip and whoever he wants to call on to give us an update on our response.
Okay. If you can move away just a little bit, I'll take my mask off.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had an employee who Monday tested positive, and we talked with the health department right away. And there is an article which I shared yesterday that hopefully you were able to read in the Capitol. I felt that the messaging that Christine put out in coordination with the health department allowed us to have a very accurate description of what has happened. The contact tracing means that was there anyone that the employee was inside of 6 feet for at least 10 minutes, and there basically were no people that fit that category. So the contact tracing will be pretty straightforward for the health department. I was also very pleased that they recognized that the protocols we have in place in the library are exactly what is needed. We're enforcing use of masks, and we're just doing everything to make sure that we are a safe place for people to come. We also notified the public that if the health department were to contact you, that's the only time that you would really need to be concerned, because otherwise you are not at an increased risk. All of that being said, I want to just say and I'd also like to call upon Kathy to speak to this, and Rudy as well, to speak to the reopening and also to the plans for the Bush Annapolis Library. We had staff return on June 1st. We started curbside on June the 8th. At one time, we were going to do our reopening on June 15th, but due to not really being quite ready, and we wanted to make sure we had gotten the curbside under our belts and really working well, we decided to delay that from June 15th until July the 6th. So we now have been open since July 6th. On that day, we had around 4,000 people who came to our libraries, and that was even with the limits on the number of people coming in. That works out to be about half of our usual number on a summer day coming to the library, but it was a lot of people coming in. The service is happening in a very different way, and we're moving steadily now toward the next week's opening of the Bush Annapolis Library. Christine also can speak to this, but she has worked with our videographer, as well as Ann Glenn worked with, to be able to get a video. So we'll have a virtual opening. The governor has a statement, county executive, a whole bunch of people are on a Zoom call, and we're going to have a really wonderful opening given the circumstances. The other thing that I think that Coven, as well as Kathy, any of my team can address, is the anxiety that our staff have felt about this opening. It is a huge deal to do this reopening and to be reading the newspapers and watching the news, listening to the radio about this situation that we're in. Every day there's sort of a new way to be frightened, and it is terrifying in many ways to be opening our doors and making sure we are minimizing risk. As Dr. Kalyana Raman said from the beginning, we will not eliminate 100% of the risk, but we can minimize it, and he feels that enforcing the use of masks, ensuring the 6-foot distance, having people wash their hands regularly, cleaning our surfaces, cleaning our restrooms more frequently than normal, that those things essentially take care of about 99% of the risk. And so with that, I guess I would like to call on Kathy to speak to anything else regarding the reopening.
Hi, everyone. I'll just give you a little update. I think that July 6th, which was our first day open, everybody was pretty nervous, but it was kind of like jumping into the deep end of the pool. And once they got their feet wet, I got a lot of reports that it was a pretty good day, and it felt good to be back. And it felt more scary thinking about it than it was to actually be there and getting back into the routine of what it meant to do their jobs. The customers are so grateful and so glad to be back. Everybody's happy to see each other. So I think that it has gone really well. We're halfway through, more than halfway through week 2. Overall, very smooth. Curbside, which was overwhelming at first, has really gone down in the branches since we opened. We've had, let's see, very low foot traffic. I think the staff in the branches were worried. They were imagining the traffic we used to have and the big programs and everything, and they were very worried about how we would manage that. But actually, people are slowly coming back out into the public, not just to the library. So we've had very few lines, even with a limited access to the buildings, and people being very, patient if they have to wait for a few minutes, which has only happened a few times, making their visits brief. We've had a couple of instances with people arguing about masks, but not a lot. We've had 2 incident reports. One was someone yelling at staff about it. The other one was refusing to wear a mask because he said a motorcycle helmet was good enough, which of course we said it wasn't. So, some things like that. But the staff handled it, and in the scheme of things, with the many people coming in, I feel like it's going okay. So, we're anxious to get back on to week 3. I think they were a little bit scared with the report yesterday, but overall, we are reassured by the health department telling us that we're doing the right thing. We're wearing masks, we're distancing, so we're going to continue to do. And like I said, the public has been very supportive and grateful. So I think we're doing okay.
Thank you, Kathy. By the way, for the viewing audience, this was Kathy Hollerback, Chief of Public Services and Branch Management. I would like to ask Coven to speak to any concerns about staff and to the message you sent to the Odenton staff when we learned that there was this one employee who had tested positive. So if you could, okay, thank you, Coven. Coven is Chief of Human Resources.
Certainly there was a lot of anxiety surrounding returning, but also with the case that happened in Odenton. So what we did was allowed staff and not only contacted them and let them know that the case occurred and what to do in terms of contacting looking at the CDC website for symptoms or information for being tested. But I sent another email allowing them to be tested during work hours. Just coordinated that with their supervisor. I think that would allow them to, or give them a better feeling of comfort that we're supporting them and addressing any type of concerns that they might have. And that seems to have gone over very well. I haven't received any emails actually since we sent a direction out to be tested, and actually what we were doing as a system as well to address the positive case. So far so good with moving forward from the incident at Odenton.
Thank you, Coven. I'd like to call on our Chief of Support Services, Rudy Rodella, to speak to the issue of both the opening of the temporary library at Riviera Beach, but also the massive work that's culminating in the opening of our Bush Annapolis library. So Rudy, if you could speak to that, and then I'm going to turn to Ann and Christine for talking about the opening day plans.
So the opening of the temporary library was for Riviera Beach has been accomplished. It's the facility is open. It's getting some visitors. And it's a very useful, cute, quaint little library. I think the community will enjoy having a library while we build a brand new library for that community. So I was glad we were able to do that. Almost all of the construction tasks at Annapolis have been completed. We've got one lamp that we have to move and a couple of sound panels that we're still waiting for. It won't be here in time for a grand opening, but we will make accommodations for that last installation as soon as the panels arrive. But the Annapolis is ready to open. Gloria's got her team working and training really hard, so I expect opening day to be joyous, but a non-event, non-drama kind of day. It should be a very smooth opening. We expect that to happen very well. I'm sorry, Skip, did you have a third question you wanted me to address?
I think you covered it, Rudy. Okay. And I just saw a note from Jim asking to speak before we move on to from this. And I do want, I'm going to come back to Christine and Ambit. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Skip, and thank you, everybody. I just want to say that my 5-year-old and I were in the Odenton branch the day after they reopened. And other than typical parental paranoia, we felt incredibly safe. I think the measures were very well stricken, were very well laid out, I should say. And the branch itself looked great. We did not feel unsafe again, other than my parental paranoia, for even a moment. The service was, as always, exceptional. And I want to just thank you and the entire team for everything that you've done to really make it happen and to make it safe to open and to make parents of 5-year-olds feel like they could walk in there safely and handle their business. So thank you to the entire team.
Thank you so much, and I accept that on behalf of the whole team because they are the ones making all this happen. So next Wednesday, 10:30 we're going to have press. 11 we're going to open the building. Christine, can you talk about that, and Ann, can you talk about the donor information?
Sure. Christine Feldman, Marketing Communications Manager for the library for our viewing public. Yes, our opening day is looking good. Obviously, it's a lot less involved than we had hoped, but we will start with a media preview at 10:30 where we will be showing a roughly 90-second video of our virtual ribbon cutting made up of both some interviews and the lovely Zoom call that a few of you were on. And then after that, we will open the doors at 11 and to limited numbers of individuals at a time. And we'll have the first checkout by a young local boy who's going to be checking out the first book. And then people can enjoy the library. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Christine, how many people are going to be allowed in at a time?
I will ask Kathy to address that. I know it's may still be determined, but Kathy, do you have some insight?
I'm still working through that with Gloria. Depending on which formula we use, the number is between 40 and 60. We have been kind of taking it a day at a time with the occupancy numbers, because in a perfect world, people would come in and spread out, but they don't. They come in and then they group around the checkout desk or around the computers. So I have empowered the managers to start with a low number and ease up a little bit. But Gloria and I are working for Annapolis on a way to have a place where people can queue up if there is a line and people can't all get in at once. So I still need to finalize with her what that actual number is going to be, but I think it's probably going to be 45-ish, something like that.
Okay.
Do you want us to come?
Exactly.
Christine, I don't know.
I don't, in terms of showing support, if you came sometime that day, I think that would be nice, but please don't feel like you need to be there at 11 o'clock where we will likely have a line of people, because you will unfortunately be waiting in line. But that first week, I'm sure it would be really supportive to show the staff your faces and bring your family. But please don't feel like you need to be there at 11 a.m.
Okay.
Oh, we do have, here's something kind of fun. If you want to get a new library card, we're going to be offering a special commemorative card, which you can get at the new Annapolis Library.
Simona, please unmute yourself also. We can't hear you.
Here.
Oh,
You're good. You got it.
you were unmuted. Now you're back to mute.
Hit it one more time.
One more time? Perfect.
Nope.
Nope.
Not perfect.
One more?
Good.
There you go.
Okay,
We can hear you.
great. I'm sorry. Do you plan to videotape this so we can view the actual opening? And I know you said you had a snippet. Will it be all in one video?
So there's going to be two videos actually. On the 22nd at 10:30, we'll release a 90-second ribbon cutting video. And then roughly 3 or 4 days later, we're going to release a longer video, which shows people actually coming in and using the space, and some interviews with some folks, which will be really exciting for people to see.
Okay, and do you have to be in person to get a card for Annapolis? Because I already have my card, but I wouldn't mind having one of those commemorative cards.
If you want to use it, yeah, you need to come into the branch and we'll get you a new card. It won't have your same number. So if you're like me and you've memorized your number, your library
Oh.
card number, you lose that. But
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Ann,
Do you mean I have to give up my sneaks card?
Julie has a question. Before we get to Ann, I believe Joyce has a question.
Okay, maybe Ann's going to address this. First, I have another question. The commemorative card I want as well. I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I won't even be here for any of this. Will that be available for a while then?
We have about 1,000 cards that we've ordered, and if we have a mad rush and they all go in a few days or a week, we'll probably want to reorder more.
Okay.
We really kind of had no idea, so we started with 1,000, and we can adjust from there.
Okay, so I don't need to send Gloria an email telling her to say.
No, you'll be fine.
Now maybe Ann's going to cover this. I was going to ask about what we're doing about For the Love of the Library. Are you going to cover that, Ann?
I will let Ann discuss that.
Okay, I'll mute myself again.
Yeah, I'll address that.
So Ann Glenn is the executive director of the AACPL Foundation. This is for everybody who's viewing. Ann, go ahead.
They all know who I am. Come on. I'm really happy to tell you that, or report to you that we're going to be able to have a very small gathering of some of our leadership donors on July 21st at the library. This will be, I think right now we have about 25 of them who have told us they will be there. This is not going to be a reception or anything like that. It's simply going to be, we've invited them to come at 5 o'clock on the 21st and to be able to enter the building and to see it before the general public does. As I said, we have about 25 people who've said they'll be there. These are people who have a named space in the library, so they'll be able to see their beautiful sign and some of the major donors whose name is on the donor wall, which if you haven't seen the donor wall yet, it's really beautiful. So we're excited that we're going to be able to do that. Skip and Gloria Harberts, of course, the branch manager at Annapolis, Karen Smith, one of our foundation board members, and I will be welcoming everyone who comes and taking them around, showing them things, and obviously showing them where their signage is. So we're very happy we're going to be able to do that. Yeah, Penny. You're muted, Penny. Maybe she's not trying to get our attention. And as for Penny.
Now, Anne,
yeah,
how in the world are we ever going to find our bricks on the wall?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because it was just completely solved this week. We have created, and I give all the credit to this to Julie Kaiser-Ball, and our part-time hourly person, Abby Boudreau. And we also received quite a bit of help from Rudy. We have created a key. What we have, and it's on the AACPL website. If you go to the AACPL website and you look under Foundation, you will see a link to the key. Now, what the key is a drawing of the sidewalk showing the sections of the sidewalk, and they are numbered, that have engraved bricks in them. Then you can click on another document which gives the various sayings that are on there. And we have another document that will be published. It's being published right now. We'll have it tomorrow, and will be available at Annapolis at their information desk, where you can go and take a look at that key. You can either do it online, or you can go and take a look at the key, and you'll be able to find by your last name what section and location your key is at. If that is difficult, you can call us and we can tell you instantly where your brick is. So
you mean you'll tell us where to go?
Yeah, we'll tell you where to go. Also in this key are photographs that are quite readable on your computer of each section. So even if you can't make it there, or you want to forward what the brick looks like to someone else on your computer, as an attachment, you can do that that's how Rudy helped us. He actually used a drone to take very detailed photographs of each section. And as I say, you can read the bricks. So that's another way to do it. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, as you can imagine. It really was. So back to For the Love of the, Rudy, did you want to say something?
Yes, I'm just giving credit to Scott Barter and his team because they were the drone pilots for that project. All I did was assign the work.
That's right. That's right. Scott Barter did do that work. Thank you.
And
yeah.
What was the final amount of money raised by the bricks?
$156,700, of which about $130,000 of that was actual profit. We had to spend about $30,000 to have the bricks engraved, to purchase the bricks and to have them engraved. The cost of installation was covered by the county. That was part of our contract for the building. So all we had to pay was $30,000.
Are you going to open another section? Because I think once people see it, they're going to want more.
I know.
Let me speak to that. Let me just speak to that. By the time it is time to open up another section, I believe that our executive director might have retired by then. So we're going to defer to a new executive director and hope we also have a director of the annual fund. So we're hoping to expand the staff, and then I think we'll be dealing with that next year, most likely, because it's a hell of a lot of work.
That's a nice way of saying what I was going to say, which is that we do not have plans at this time. And many people have approached us about doing it again. The reality is it was very time consuming, and I don't think we can justify. It was a great thing to do. It brought us 900 new donors to the library who had never given any kind of gift to us before. That's fantastic, and it was worth doing, but it was a huge time drain. And right now, I feel like the foundation staff can be more productive putting that kind of time into working on other things. But as Skip says, as we go forward, if we can increase the staff of the foundation, I hope we can do it again. There's still a lot of space there where we could put bricks. And yes, it is very popular. It's been much more successful, not just in how many bricks we sold, but it really brings people to that spot. And it is, and I'm not the only person who's made this observation, it's kind of a spiritual experience to walk it and read the things that people put on the bricks. It's very moving. Joyce, to your question about For the Love of the Library, we're still working on this. Of course, we don't know when we're going to be able to bring a large group of people together again. But right now, what our hope is that we would do For the Love of the Library on January 8th, 2021, which is the 100th anniversary of the Anne Arundel County Public Library system. It was founded on that exact date 100 years ago. And we would love to be able to do a big gathering at the New Annapolis Library and have that be For the Love of the Library, probably combined 2020, 2021. And we are going to plan for that, but we're also making plans for some kind of virtual celebration too, because we just don't know if we're going to be able to bring 300 people together even in January.
Okay, I just want to say, now I
Last
remember.
question, we have to move, after this question, Joyce, we have to move on to the rest of the agenda. I don't want to keep you guys on for the rest of the evening.
It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I think I remember us talking about it in the foundation meeting, but I did want to say, I found I bought 7 bricks, and I did it in memory of my family. Most of my family members passed away. My husband, my twin sister, my aunt, and my mom. And I made a brick for each one of them because they lived up in New Jersey. This is my way of bringing them to Maryland, and because of my love of library. So I found each one of those bricks, and they're beautifully done, and I'm very delighted with it. I just want to say that.
Great, great. I'm done.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you once again to all the staff for your hard work, and through this trying time, we couldn't really pull it out without you guys. The next item on our agenda is looking at a proposal I want to make to the agenda for the upcoming year. As you know, a lot of our time is really much bogged down with staff reports, and the staff reports are really substantive. And if you look at it, we have staff reports, and then we have action items, and then we leave after those meetings, and we really don't have enough time to really discuss a lot of the other trends that are going on across libraries in the nation, or different trends in Anne Arundel County, or different strategic decisions that we should make as a library system. So I would like to propose an addition to the agenda and to try this out for the first 6 months or the year and see how we like it, but I want to get your guys' inclination. Skip, he submits and he sends it to us as part of his CEO report. The report he sends up to the county, and it goes to the county executive. It's his vertical report. And at one meeting, you may recall, Fred noted that this was a really good format, and it includes all the elements that all of his staff really incorporates in their individual reports. I was thinking if we can streamline those reports and consolidate it into Skip's report, and also add on through appendix fundraising and other relevant information, we can really cut down time, and that will really give us an opportunity to introduce a 15-minute presentation opportunity to look at our strategic plan or different areas where we want to have a more in-depth conversation within our library system. So that's one change I was looking at piloting throughout the year, but I just wanted to get your guys' reaction first before I make that change.
Will, this is Deirdre. I got to drop off the call here in about 3 minutes, but I had just one. Well, I support that idea. I think we need to look at the bylaws because they have a set agenda in them, and we may want to take that out because that's not common to put an agenda in your bylaws as a fixed agenda. It makes it really, really difficult to do this sort of thing. So we may want to look at removing that from the bylaws. But I think last I looked, it was in there, and it had a set like timeline for the reports and such. I'm not even sure we're following it exactly. But I need to drop off the call. So thanks.
No, thank you. Are there any other reactions to that, or Barbara?
Unmute.
If you can unmute, if you want to say something.
Ask her to unmute again.
Okay.
Can you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think it's a terrific idea because it'll give the board the opportunity to hear about new trends in the library systems all over the U.S. and help us and continue to improve and be in the forefront of what we do in our libraries.
Anyone else? Good. And like I said, we can try this out, and if we realize that it isn't a practice that doesn't work for us and for our board, we can go back to the way we previously handled our business. But I just wanted to try this new way to see how it worked and see if it can make our meetings more productive. So we will try that. Moving on to our next agenda item is governance. There's a few updates that I wanted to give you guys in regards to governance. And the first one is in relation to the Revere Beach Capital Project Committee. Rob is going to chair that committee. He will succeed Will Calhoun, who was chairing that committee. Rob is from Pasadena, so he was the most appropriate person to take on that mantle and run with it since he's from that community. So I appointed him to chair that committee. With the cybersecurity committee, as you know, currently it's an ad hoc committee. And it was an ad hoc committee because when Rudy submitted to us the malware report, we wanted a committee to really dive into the details of that. But I don't want an ad hoc committee just sitting out there and really just floating out. So my hope is that once the IT audit is complete, that they will be able to give us a final report with policy recommendations. And then what we'll do is we will dissolve that committee and institute it back into what we're looking to change the budget committee into a finance and audit committee to make the budget committee a little bit more dynamic so that the budget committee is not just looking at the budget, they're looking at all financial and auditing aspects of the library system. So we're looking at adding more depth to our oversight functions as trustees. So I'm working with Deidre to look at proposing some bylaw changes, and we'll bring that to the governance committee and up to the board of trustees in the fall for further consideration at that time. So I want to ask Skip or Rudy to just comment on so you guys know the price of the IT audit. Or is that something you guys want to discuss in closed session?
No, Rudy, go ahead and speak to the proposals and the price at our plans to meet with cybersecurity next week.
So we did ask for proposals from three firms that are on the MEEC contract list: Advanced Technology Systems, Janus Consultants, and Cass Severn. Two of them are local. One has a local office, but they're actually based in Dallas. The prices for the proposals range from $33,000 to around $50,000, which is close to the estimate that we thought we were going to be seeing those proposals come in under. The scopes of work are a little bit different. Each one of them has a particular, we've noticed each one of those firms has a particular strength. So Scott Barter and I are going to sit down and do a deep dive on the proposals and have a recommendation for the cybersecurity committee. And of course they'll have the opportunity to review them as well before we actually make the final selection on the firm that we contract. We hope to do that audit sometime in the third quarter of this year.
Perfect.
Question for Rudy? Question for when we have this done, is this going to be done on a one-time basis? Is this an ongoing thing? Do we have a monthly contract? Do we have a yearly contract? I mean, tell me a little bit about it.
Excellent question. So it is a baseline vulnerability assessment. That's the core part that we're asking for. And they will look at all of our endpoints, our network, and our basic security structure, and then give us an assessment as to the immediate steps we need to fix right away, and point us in the direction of where a long-term overall cybersecurity strategy ought to take us. After so that's the initial baseline vulnerability assessment. There's another policy and procedural step that needs to be incorporated after that. Once those two pieces are in place, we expect that to be about a year's worth of work. Then we will be looking to do another follow-on assessment to see if we're up to snuff, if we're up to the standards that have been set, that are usually set aside for cybersecurity in the industry.
So Rudy,
I'm sorry, no, this is just a first step. There'll be a follow-on assessment, and then we expect that will be a recurring assessment that we would be making as time goes on.
So do you think that after the initial assessment and the follow-up, that it won't be quite so expensive, or will it be that kind of cost every year?
Fortunately, I think it is going to be that kind of cost every year. These services are fairly specialized. It's just the price we pay for that kind of security.
And we know we need it.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to meet our fiduciary responsibilities. So with that, does anyone have any other questions regarding cybersecurity or anything else that I've mentioned so far? The only thing I want to bring up in terms of governance is, as you know, Deidre is leaving, and that will leave a spot open for the treasurer position. And we open up to the floor at our June meeting that we're looking for a treasurer. No one has stepped forward currently. I had a conversation with Jenny Lane, and she said that no one has stepped forward. So I was looking around also and taking into consideration that our board is shrinking. When I first joined the board, we were a 23-member board, roughly 24-member board. Over the course of a couple of years, we will be shrinking to 17 members. And that means that we will have a smaller applicant pool to look to for people to participate. I had a conversation with Rob, who is our current second vice chair. And it's to my understanding that the second vice chair position was created because Joyce wasn't interested in ascending to the chair, so you guys were stuck with me at the end of the day. So that the second vice chair position was created as a training ground to become chair. So I was wondering, what are your guys' reactions if we eliminate the second vice chair and Rob transitions to treasurer to accommodate the shrinking of the board, along with trying to fill all of our leadership roles accordingly?
Couldn't he do both?
Our governance chair said no. So, Penny?
I was just wondering whether we should have, as a regular member of the board, an assistant treasurer who would then be willing to step in if we need one.
The problem is now we can't get a treasurer to begin with, so it's hard to get an assistant.
Well, that's saying once we have one, should our bylaws specify a treasurer and an assistant?
I mean, we can explore that option. It's just going back to the point, if we can't get the first person in the seat, I don't see how we're going to get somebody else in the seat. But we can explore that option, and we can have that conversation with the governance committee if we think
it would be
we can.
Further, not an instant, not a remedy, but a way of going forward.
Okay. We can look at that as part of succession planning. Does Jim?
Mr. Chair, have you talked to Rob about this? I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I were in a seat and I wasn't at the meeting and then I got volunteered for something, I'm not sure how I'd react. But if you've talked to Rob about it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, you know how that goes. If you don't show up at a meeting, you're going to run the committee. So.
Uh-oh. Thanks, Joan, for letting me know.
As Barbara Mikulski once said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So are there any other reactions or any other points anyone would like to raise regarding governance? Okay, quickly, strategic planning. What we're going to do is in the fall, we're going to look to have a conversation and entertain a motion to extend our current strategic plan from year 2022 to year 2023. Fiscal year 2023, to give staff more time to dive into the current strategic plan, especially during COVID-19, so that they can really implement the strategic priorities, and it will give us enough time with the new format of our agenda to have more conversations and really work with staff to really find ways of how we can monitor our progress and how we're being more effective as a library system. So we'll have more conversations about that in September, but I just wanted to let you know that we are looking at how we can be more effective at implementing our strategic plan, at the same time being accommodating to the fact that COVID has really put a lot of hiccups in a lot of things. So just wanted to throw that out there. So with that, we're going to close the meeting because we have a quick personnel issue to discuss. Coven is going to stay in the meeting with us, but the Closed Meeting Act allows public bodies to close part of their meetings for certain reasons, and we are closing our meetings to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of an appointee, employee, or official over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individual. I move that we move into public session, closed session. Is there a second? I'm going to say Joyce. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, we are now in closed session. There's going to be a breakout box, so please click it once Coven sends it out to you.